Kenya-Australia ties continues, and on today's show,
we've now joined the world oil-producing countries.
Why Kenya considers Australia as a strategic and timely partner in mining.
Australia have been mining for 100 years.
Immense experience in technology of the oil and gas sector.
We have about 33 oil blocks available for investors.
How can we as a country be able to bring down the cost of power?
Energy is a very big component of our economic development.
Welcome, I'm your host Alex Chamwada, and as usual, we begin with our fact sheet.
The Australian mining industry dates back to the gold rushes of the 1850s, making it one of the country's most well-established sectors. It is a major contributor to national GDP, typically accounting for around 7% of total GDP. The industry is strongly export-oriented, with minimal processing onshore, and since 2007-2008, mining has accounted for between 50 and 60% of total national exports. Australia is a global top 5 producer of gold, iron ore, lead, zinc and nickel. It also has the world's largest uranium and 4th largest black coal resources respectively. As the 4th largest mining country in the world, after China, the United States and Russia, Australia will have ongoing demand for high-tech equipment, representing potential opportunities for US suppliers. Australia too has great ties with Africa in oil, gas and energy, with Africa accounting for over 7% of the world's proven oil and gas reserves. In Kenya, the petroleum industry is relatively new in terms of mining and exploration, and mining in general accounts for just about 1% of the country's GDP. Kenya boasts of being Africa's geothermal power leader, aiming to be powered entirely by green energy by 2020. Kenya also has Africa's largest wind power project in Turkana. And that's our fact sheet. My name is Michael Zimanji.
When Kenya joined the ranks of petroleum exporting countries on 26 August 2019, Perth City in Western Australia was preparing to host the 5th edition of Africa Oil, Gas and Energy Conference, where Kenya would feature prominently among African countries that offer great opportunities for ties with Australia in the mining sector. President Uhuru Kenyatta had just flagged off over 200,000 barrels of Kenya's first oil export from the port of Mombasa. But reaching full production potential, estimated at 100 barrels per day by the year 2024, will require investments in infrastructure, including drilling and pipelines. Well, this update couldn't have come at a better time, as Kenyans played a key role in the conference in Perth from the 2nd to the 3rd of September under the theme Connecting Australia with Opportunities in Africa.
I double the private and the government sector.
The founder of the conference is Stephen Kuria, a Kenyan mining consultant in Australia, who is the chairman of the Kenya-Australia Chamber of Commerce and also the managing director of Australia Africa Energy and Mineral Institute. At the same time, the current chairman of the Mineral Rights Board in Kenya.
Australia have been mining for 100 years. We are not even stepping up. We got one of the good assets in Kakamega, but yet we are also the last when it comes to the risk in the mining industry. We are actually worse than Zimbabwe. So you can ask yourself why. So there's a lot of work need to be done, and we have started by even putting some strategic plan on the ground. So we can't compare ourselves in Australia. Well, we still have to benchmark.
From the African perspective, a lot was shared among the stakeholders, with participants drawn from mining companies, financiers, lawmakers and government representatives. Zimbabwe is among the countries that shared their prospects in oil, gas and energy.
We're a net importer of electricity, we're a net importer of fuel. And because we have failed, we have not been attracting the much needed capital to exploit this. And since the onset of the new dispensation under President Mnangagwa, Zimbabwe is open for business. That has enabled us as a country to attract the much needed capital to enable us to talk about this.
When you take Botswana as another case study, the mineral industry has dominated the national economy since the 1970s. Statistics indicate that diamond has been the leading component of the mineral sector since large-scale diamond production began in 1972. But are there opportunities in other areas like gas?
We've been exploring and prospecting for a number of years in Botswana, and we're now at the stage where we're looking to commercialise our assets by selling the gas as electricity. The main challenge that we've had to overcome is the lack of industry-specific skills and infrastructure. But we've been there for a number of years, and we've met those challenges by buying a lot of our equipment and infrastructure ourselves, training up locals in the necessary skills, and we're now looking to benefit from that time and money we've spent doing that by going into production and selling a much needed product, which is electricity to Botswana and into the Southern African power pool.
The disruption that has been caused by the current China-United States trade war and the technological disruption of renewable energies changing people's demand by far for energy resources are some of the other challenges that were discussed at the conference, with Australia seeking to expand its footprint on the continent.
Traditionally and in practice, the largest footprint is in the mining industry. We have more than 165 Australian companies across 39 countries in 25 mineral regimes. So that extractive industries is where we have our greatest footprint. In terms of the countries, the major countries are South Africa, Ghana, Tanzania. That is the areas where we have most Australian companies. So more than 165 companies, Australian companies, across sub-Saharan Africa.
The host minister at the conference was Bill Johnston, the minister in charge of mines and petroleum, West Australia.
What we've learned over the last 35 years of exporting LNG is that you have to provide a stable environment for long-term investors. If you want to have a long-term future in the energy sector, it's our view that it's important to provide a strong and stable regulatory framework so that the companies will invest for the long term. That way you don't get the sort of short-term thinking that sometimes comes with foreign investment. You can harness that long-term benefit so that the people of your country can get better, enjoy the wealth that comes out of exploiting those natural resources.
During the conference, Kenya sought to woo investors in Kenya's mining sector.
Kenya is endowed with the oil and gas blocks. We've discovered oil in Turkana, and there are many other blocks we want to give out so that people can discover oil. We have infrastructure that is coming, the construction of the pipeline. We have the jetty that is going to transport our white product to Uganda and therefore to the Greater Lakes region.
We are moving very fast to make sure that we reach what we call financial investment decisions so that we can be able to offer the full-scale production.
We have 23 open blocks and the total of 67 blocks, gazetted 37. We have about 33 old blocks available for investors. And there are more opportunities in the oil and gas sector. We just want to encourage people to come.
But apart from oil, what other opportunities can Kenya offer?
And mining, as you know, base titanium, which is one of the biggest companies on sand minerals. The rutiles and all that is an Australian company. They have been able to actually mine in Kwale and generated revenue that is part of our biggest revenue.
Oil sector has been there for quite a while, but I think the key issue here is what future potential, let's say, for the energy. One, of course, is there are a lot of pressures from lobby groups, the government, the regulators, and so on, that we reduce what we call carbon emissions. So that means actually we have to reduce the use of oil, especially those ones which have high content of sulfide. So as such, people are more or less looking to other alternative of energies. One, of course, is the gas is going to be more prominent as we go into the future. Second is we are also exploring what we call the renewable energy, which has tremendous growth over the last few years.
At the conference in Perth, there was also representation from Kenya's National Assembly Energy Committee as well as the Public Accounts Committee.
You can see in our country, we have been able to go to renewables, which is giving us almost 80% of the production of energy in the country now is through renewable. The latest being the injection of 310 megawatts of power, wind power from Turkana, but the cost remains high. So again, we are here also to understand how can we as a country be able to bring down the cost of power and be able to bring in a lot of investors who will go into now one of the big four agenda on industrialization.
There's a lot of goodwill by the Australian companies here that are intending to invest in Kenya. So but a good environment must be created for them to come. So the minister spoke here and the government officials spoke here, and I hope it's not just speaking, they will put that into action.
Well, Australia is on a level Kenya can only imagine. According to Geoscience Australia, in 2016, there were over 370 operating mine sites across the country, of which approximately 1/3 is located in Western Australia, 1/4 in Queensland, and 1/5 in New South Wales, making them the 3 major mining states. We got an opportunity to visit the Fimiston open pit, also known as the Super Pit, that is located on the southeast edge of a place known as Kalgoorlie in Western Australia. It is one of Australia's largest open-cut gold mines. Housing one of the richest gold deposits in the world, the Super Pit is managed by Kalgoorlie Consolidated Gold Mines, KCGM. Because of its history, the Super Pit is like no other mining operation in the world. It is unique in terms of both the work and the experience for miners. It is such experience that Kenya would like to get a share of.
Kenya should learn from Australia in terms of that technology so that we reduce on the losses we are now getting. There's the infrastructure coming, the construction of pipelines. There's a new pipeline coming, the white pipeline, and the crude pipeline from Lokicha to Lamu. We want to encourage Australian companies to come for those tenders and engage us so that we work closely and to build the oil and gas sector. This LPG, the gas sector is an important sector. As we electrify our homes, we also need to clean our homes. People burning charcoal and firewood. We were developing LPG, and Australia is one of the countries that has developed capacity in LNG and LPG.
On that note, we take a short break. We have more on Kenya-Australia ties in mining right after the break. Welcome back. This is a continuation of our 2-part series, Kenya-Australia ties, and today the focus is mining. Any discussion about mining would be incomplete without looking at legislation, and that was one of the key areas of knowledge sharing during the Africa Oil, Gas and Energy Conference in Perth City.
I think the opportunities are great, and our government has really done a lot through the legislation, the 2 legislations which are accepted to by Parliament, that is the Energy Act and the Petroleum Act. And now the nuclear energy, which we have already passed and is sitting at the Senate. And I think through legislation, as a country, we can be able to do a lot because it is through legislation, like you've heard, what Australia is doing in terms of encouraging investors to come and invest their money. As a government, we don't have a lot of money. We can only invest as much as the government can be able to give. But through private-public partnership with other investors, then we can be able to improve on the generation of oil and gas, and lastly transmission.
And without proper regulation, it is difficult to attract investors.
There's three main things I would look at for a company looking at a country. The first is, and it's around sovereign risk. So the sovereign risk is around security of tenure, that when you are given a permit, you keep it for the length of the time that the permit is given to you for, that they can't take it away from you. The second one is called regulatory burden. So if there's a high cost or a high time factor in getting approvals, then companies will turn away from that. Or if there is uncertainty around what regulations you have to meet, or what royalties you may pay, or what the fiscal system may be in the country. If that changes or is unreliable, companies tend to steer away from those kinds of countries.
That is why cartels in the sector can be a big hindrance to the development of the sector.
It's a big issue that this is a shroud with sometimes people wanting to make profits, huge profits. And therefore for us we want to be very categorical that it is the interest of the country we want to ensure that happens. That as much as we can, the proceeds of oil and gas and minerals should actually support our economy. There's so many cartels in these games, locally, internationally, wanting to make money from oil and gas. And therefore we need to be very careful. I mean, watch out those strange characters who would want to fleece our countries from benefiting.
There's also a lot of illegal miners. There's a lot of people doing illegally not licensed. One of the reasons why it sounds so bad is that we are not transparent about it. You cannot go in and say, Alex, I want to identify this as my mining lease. People also mine like in places like Kakamega. You hear women can't go to the shaft. So there's a lot of controversy. In Taveta, people get buried underneath. People use mercury. And that's where I am here, is trying to clean up this system. It's difficult, I can't say it's easy, and the system fight back without a face. I'm expecting those fights, I'm experiencing now, but we are working with the government, and I'm pretty sure that we should be able to start cleaning this process. And it starts with the step one, that you can be able to clearly see who is mining, where, at what particular time.
And that is why there is need for proper data management, which Australia is good at.
I think the investment mainly will be to acquisition of data so that we can put online. Whoever, any kind of investor who wants to come and invest, he doesn't have to spend upfront, but he can buy the data and then be able to move. So I think that is an area where we have really discussed a framework of really making sure that we map out the areas where there could be some resources. Now, second is the sharing of information about African countries. There are those countries who have done this kind of job before. We have Nigeria, we have Ghana, and so on, so that we don't repeat the same kind of mistakes they did in the earlier years. And that is something actually what we have discussed. And in fact, there will be a meeting in November within the African countries so that they can be able to share the experience.
Then the issue of benefits to communities. Just what is the lesson from Australia on managing community interests?
Part of the value or the benefit to communities relate to the actual development of the project. It's probably a little more obvious in mining or onshore. For example, if you're offshore, when most of Australia's gas reserves are offshore, so they're in the water. When you're onshore and there's a closer relationship between the local community and the mining or the oil and gas company, most of the benefits are built into the project when it comes to the like environmental and regulatory license part of it. So you'll know that there needs to be local employment, there needs to be local infrastructure, and so that's where local communities get the benefit. Not so much a cheque or an amount of money, but it is in facilities, it is in community operations and projects, and it is in employment.
Of course, we need to sensitize our communities to be receptive so that, as you know, I mean, this is an arrangement that is tripartite. And the government must support and the companies come in, and therefore the communities should also be part of the whole agreements. So often we get challenges with the host communities. Like for the Talo case, we've had challenges with the communities, but we resolved them. Eventually we have resolved them.
Some countries have a national program where a portion of the value of the export is quarantined into a fund, and that fund, the benefits of that. So it's like a little bank, let's say. That amount of money from all exports goes in, and then from the interest on that money, benefits go to the local community. And I think the Norwegian fund was one of those that we were talking about today.
In a nutshell, mining is key to the ties between Australia and Africa, and closer home, Kenya sees Australia as a timely partner given the growing interest in Kenya's oil, gas and energy sector.
We are happy with the relations. They can be stronger, but that is what we're here to continue ensuring that our relations grow from strength to strength.
We have links crossing a range of different sectors and of course very strong people-to-people links as well. So obviously in my role I'm hoping to grow the trade and investment relationship between our countries, and I know Kenya's High Commissioner to Australia is also doing the same.
That marks the end of our two-part series, Kenya-Australia Ties, and today we focused on mining. On behalf of my production team at Chams Media Limited and our broadcasting partner KTN News, many thanks for watching. And before I sign out, while we were in Australia, it was not all about work. We leave you with this.